People don't want to hear any more from him. But Bob Mueller's not one of them. He did want to hear from Bannon. Today, I was able to press Steve Bannon on why. He told me he is a fact witness to both collusion and obstruction issues in this Russia probe. He told me a story we've never heard directly from Bannon on air before, how he actually first met Bob Mueller inside the Trump White House. This was just days before Mueller was named special counsel, and it was as Mueller was walking into the Oval Office to meet with Donald Trump about the embattled FBI. And we now know that was the last time that Bob Mueller and Donald Trump spoke face to face. I also pressed Steve Bannon about his standard for treasonous conduct at that Trump Tower meeting. Here are these key Russia highlights.
So when I basically laid out the facts of what I thought the Comey situation was, if people decide to go in a different direction, then it's not my thing. I'm not there to try to fight things to the very end.
So you advise against it. Walk us through the day he was fired.
Well, the day he's fired, I see it on TV like everybody else. I mean, I'm sitting in the chief of staff's office. I'm working on something for Reince that needs to be done. I see it up on TV.
And what did you think?
I thought, as I said, I thought it was a big mistake, and I thought it would lead to a special counsel. I mean, I think everything I said at the time basically worked itself out. That was going to lead to a special counsel. I think if the Comey investigation had been allowed to continue, it would have taken another couple of months and it wrapped up.
When is the first time during your White House service that you ever talked to Bob Mueller?
Well, Bob Mueller came in, and gave advice or was interviewed, as has been publicly reported, for FBI director. And, Bob Mueller, I was sitting in kind of the outer office, and Mueller actually walks up to me, and I've never met him before in my life. I'm standing actually in back of Hope Hicks at her computer terminal, and we're talking about something. He walks up and says, he just shook hands and said, Steve, I can't believe, Mueller's a Marine. He says, Steve, I can't believe somebody in the senior naval service allowed his daughter to matriculate at West Point. And I just laughed, and I told somebody later, it's a pretty thorough guy to know that. So that's the first time I ever met him.
What was he trying to say to you?
I think he was just trying to. I think he was trying to, just introduce himself. At that time, he was actually there to give advice on the type of person that we should select to be FBI director.
So, this is pretty fascinating. You're there working in the White House right after Comey's fired.
Right.
Bob Mueller walks in, says this to you, and then he what? Goes into the Oval?
Yeah.
You say you're a witness of fact.
Yep.
Which is a good thing for you.
Well, I think so, yeah.
You haven't been advised that you were something worse in their eyes. Are you a witness of fact to the investigation regarding obstruction or collusion or both?
I think I'm a witness of fact for all of it. I think I'm a witness of fact for all of it. I mean, when they call you up there, they don't really kind of bifurcate. They kind of go through the whole thing. And of course, I've been to Capitol Hill, right, a couple of times. So, I'm a witness of fact up there also.
When you said the Trump Tower meeting with the Russians was treasonous, and you said you meant Paul Manafort.
Yeah.
What about it made it treasonous in your view?
I just didn't look. I think for a professional like Paul Manafort, I don't think you ought to ever have, forget it. Just people from other countries, Russians or whatever, come in and try to get opposition research. There's enough opposition research out there. Look, Clinton Cash to me did all the opposition research you had to do. You just had to get down there and drill down on it. And as we did when I took over the campaign on that Monday, or when I was CEO of the campaign with Kellyanne as campaign manager, on that Monday, the first day we kind of took over, we put out I think a statement from then candidate Trump. It was about Paul Manafort when Manafort was, I think, getting ready to resign, and we've referenced Clinton Cash and her corruption in Clinton Cash.
So by your standard, it's that knowledge of the foreign offer of help.
Well, no, I don't know the foreign offer of help. I think it's even just trying to do something like that. I think is
trying to do something like that. So if Donald Trump knew about that, then he was in on treasonous behavior in your standard.
No, and I'm not. Look, it hasn't been proven that he knew anything about it. We don't know anything. He's knew anything about it. He's denied knowing anything about it.
You said there's zero chance Don Jr. didn't tell him, and Michael Cohen reportedly says Trump knew about it.
Well, you have to take Michael Cohen for Michael Cohen, right? You're just going to have to take. We don't know what Michael Cohen's doing with federal authorities, what deals he's cutting, what he's trying to do with federal authorities.
If a candidate knows about that in advance, then are they part of treasonous behavior by your standard?
I think you have to call into question if somebody's actually out there trying to get information from foreign parties. You have to question it. Yeah.
So if Mueller could prove that about Donald Trump, that would concern you?
It would definitely concern me, yes. But the president's been pretty adamant that he didn't know about it and hasn't known about it.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that. Tonight, Donald Trump faces mounting legal and political pressure. A federal jury will take this weekend off before resuming these deliberations on the fate of his campaign manager, Paul Manafort. And Bob Mueller now tonight recommending jail time for former Trump aide George Papadopoulos. That's on the legal side. On the political side, new warnings that Republicans not only trail Democrats by 6 points in polling over who could win the midterms, but a blue wave could mark the effective end of the Trump presidency. Now, that may be motivating for many liberal voters, but Republican leaders are also mobilizing right now. Take this new video that's aiming to rile up conservative turnout by arguing this is now a war for the Trump presidency. It comes from a new multi-million-dollar campaign by former Trump campaign chair and advisor Steve Bannon, returning from exile to help congressional Republicans, whether they want his help or not. Now, Bannon is, as we all know, one of the most controversial figures in U.S. politics for many reasons, but it can be hard to see what's happening in the midterms without seeing what he's up to. Now, people can't decide what to do about developments in our politics if what's happening is not exposed or not known or not confronted. And while Bannon has played quite a big role in conservative politics, he rarely goes on TV. He's never taken questions from an MSNBC journalist on air. And that changes tonight. We are about to air my new interview with Bannon, plus independent analysis, adversarial reaction, and fact-checking from our panel of journalists and political analysts who are with me live. I want to be clear up front, this interview had no ground rules, nothing off limits. We talked about Bannon's project for the midterms, his donors, his policy record in the White House, his political record from Roy Moore to Charlottesville. We talked about the Time's Up movement, his view of James Comey's firing and the Mueller probe. And we talked about why Mueller views him as a witness to both the collusion and obstruction investigation that's going on right now. Bannon also recounts the first time he and Mueller ever spoke at the doorway to Donald Trump's Oval Office. Here is part of our discussion, starting with the midterms. Let's start with the midterms. If they were held today, who do you think would win the House?
I think if they're held today, we'd have a tough time holding the House. I really do. I think it could be north of 25, maybe 30 seats, maybe north of that. There's people that are projecting today it could be 45 or 50 seats. I believe by November 6th, we're going to win this. I think all this takes is people on our side of the football focusing on what has to happen. This is an up or down vote on President Trump. You know, this election is going to come as a referendum on him. He permeates the entire political culture. And I think those that are around him are telling him that, hey, it's okay to lose the House. You can work with the Democrats and you can run against a Democratic House in 2020. It's bad advice. We have a C4 now, and I've actually made a film that's very much focused on getting out the Trump base, the deplorables plus the blue-collar Democrats. I think the opposition party media and the Democrats did succeed in one thing. I think they did get a do-over to 2016, and I think this is his first re-election.
You've said you are going to save the Trump presidency in these midterms. Does he know that he needs you to save him?
Well, I don't think the quote was we're going to save him. What we're trying to do is actually get this message focused. The message is about President Trump. It's about a referendum on President Trump. To me, it's an up or down vote. I think the Democrats, and particularly the grassroots Democrats, are running as an impeachment campaign. I think our side has to understand that. You just can't run on tax cuts. You have to run on the entire package of the Trump presidency.
You think impeachment's on the ballot in November? Why?
Absolutely. Because, number one, Tom Steyer and the grassroots of the Democratic Party have put it on the ballot, and so has Nancy Pelosi. Right now, Ari, when they say they're not talking about impeachment, it's because they've looked at the crosstabs in the polling, and they understand when we put impeachment on the ballot that it is a way to get all of the deplorables out. Even if the congressman in your district is a rhino, that you have to come out to support President Trump. Look, people on the Democratic left, you saw grassroots, Netroots Nation a couple weeks ago. There are people in these districts in July in 90-degree heat going door to door. The reason they're going door to door is they're talking about the impeachment of President Trump. And so all we're saying is that, hey, it's already on the ballot. Let's do it.
Your new group is Citizens of the American Republic. You say we're at war. What does that really mean?
Well, the film says Trump at war. I mean, the film is about Trump. You know, Trump's at war against the permanent political class.
The film is your film.
Yeah, the film is my film. It's a film called Trump at War, and it shows you that Trump is is at war with the permanent political class, the opposition party media, and basically he's at economic war with China. And so I think that when you look at at this film, you see that President Trump is a disruptor and an innovator, and you see that he is kind of delivering on the promises he put forward to the American people, that he's not into just managing the decline of the country, but he's going to try to turn the country around. And so that's what the film is. I think it's a film that is focused on getting our base jacked up and our base out. Because if we don't get our base out on November 6th, we're going to have a very bad day at the polls. And so it's very important that the Trump voter and the invisible Trump voter show up like a presidential year. It's very important for us to show up.
What do you say to Republicans who say, why should they take your help if you haven't backed winning candidates in the special elections thus far?
Well, I think I did back winning candidates in the primary, and the Republican establishment in Alabama, Roy Moore specifically. I mean, Roy Moore would have won that election if Mitch McConnell and Shelby and these others hadn't turned against him. And so I think we've got a very good feel for how to win, a very good feel of how to turn people out. You know, I've been very involved in this since the Tea Party, the Tea Party election in 2010. So I think we have a very good idea of how to make these films and how to get people out.
You bring up Roy Moore. How can you blame Republicans in Washington for what happened out in Alabama? Didn't the voters there make up their mind?
Well, Shelby came out on Sunday morning on national TV and said, I'm not voting for Roy Moore. I'm doing a write-in. You know, McConnell was the guy. It's the Republican establishment that dumped all this stuff to the Washington Post that turned against him when their candidate got smoked in the primary. So it was the Republican establishment that said from day one, we're not only going to support Roy Moore, they were already meeting to unseat Roy Moore and not to seat him if he'd even won. So that was the Republican establishment turning against, and they were sending a signal. They would rather even lose control of the Senate than to allow disruptors in there.
How much money does your group have?
We've raised, quite a bit of money. I mean, we've made a pretty impressive film. We're going to release the film. I've got a 25-person staff. We run a war room every day. We do talking points. We do messaging.
$5 million?
Over $5 million, yes.
Over $10 million?
I don't want to put a number on it.
Is it fair to say you have right now between $5 and $10 million?
I think it's fair to say that we've got enough resources and even more resources pouring in from donors, and we're eventually going to start a small donor program. By the way, I've never had a problem getting resources. Whether it was with Breitbart or doing other things, I've always had, because I've always delivered.
You're also very rich, and you know a lot of rich people.
I've had a pretty good run, and I do know some high net worth individuals.
Who is funding this group?
Well, it's private donors. It's just private donors, just like in the Democratic Party and some of these groups. It's private donors.
Why not tell people who they are?
Well, because I think the donors want to be private. It's the law, and they got the full right to do that. If they want to come forward,
the law allows them to go public or private.
If they want to come forward, if donors want to come forward, they can come forward.
Does it include Wall Street people, finance people, hedge fund people?
It definitely includes hedge fund people. Yes, absolutely. I think you would say we're very much focused on we're the China hawk. C4. I'm very upfront about, I think, what the situation is with China, and I would tend to think that there are people that back this that are China hawks.
So for you, it may be ideology. For them, they want to make money off what comes out of these elections because of their positions on China?
No. I think it's because of their patriotism.
Do they have
I don't think it's enough money in this. No,
do they have an investment outcome, though, in terms of their positions that they can benefit from this?
No.
Is there anyone you wouldn't?
It's really, I think, more about what they think the direction of the country is.
Is there anyone you would not take money from?
Well, I would not take money from foreigners, right? And there's certain people, I'm pretty selective about, who I take money from. I've always had good partners, always had partners that have been pretty happy. So I'm pretty selective about who I take money from. But I've never had a problem raising money. And I think you see, particularly in Wall Street and others, you see a lot of people that come from hardscrabble backgrounds or blue collar backgrounds that see that like this populism, that like economic nationalism, that kind of like the Trump program, that are pretty supportive.
But your critics say that you talk a lot of smack about Wall Street, but then you're funded by Wall Street. Your new group, you're admitting, is funded partly
not funded by Wall Street, but funded by certain individuals.
Well, you just told me it includes financiers and it includes people with a position in China, is what you just said.
No, people that understand our position in China, the people that understand that we're kind of the China hawks. I didn't say they had a position in China.
But the question you understand, though, is how do you take on Wall Street if you're funded by Wall Street?
Well, by the way, individuals on Wall Street, some of the biggest guys on Wall Street are quite anti the antics of what Wall Street's been up to. I came out of Wall Street. I was at Goldman Sachs. You kind of know what the game is. Just because you've made some money on Wall Street, or just because you're currently in a hedge fund, doesn't mean you don't know what the practices of Wall Street are. I think in fact, I think it's been a great way for some people that are blue collar, that have come from blue collar backgrounds to actually get ahead.
The main piece of economic legislation that has been passed in the Trump administration is the tax bill. Most of those benefits go to the very wealthy. Was that a mistake?
Well, no. Hang on for a second. The tax bill, the central part of the tax bill was also the corporate tax bill, was to make sure that we were competitive with Germany and China. And if you look at manufacturing jobs coming back here, it's part and parcel of this the situation we're in with the tariffs, the economic package and the tax package. That was the central part of it. So you look at manufacturing jobs and hand.
I hear you globally.
No, I'm talking not
the tax
globally.
policy says 83% of the benefits.
Not globally.
Go to the top 1%.
Not globally. I'm talking about what happened here. What happened here in manufacturing jobs coming back. That's why you've got such economic growth in the country. One of the reasons is the tax bill. Now, I didn't actually love some of the things on the personal income tax. Remember, Wall Street Journal reported in the Oval Office, I fought for a 44% tax for people making over $5 million. I lost that fight, but it's not that can't be readdressed sometime in the future.
When you see 83% going to the top 1%, is that too much?
I think what's important is what's happening with corporate America, is that corporate America is becoming more competitive, and we're repatriating $3 trillion of cash to come back here and invest in the United States. I think this is about manufacturing jobs, and I think if you look at President Trump's overall economic agenda, it's working. It's working for middle class and working class people.
You talk about populism.
Yes.
The president went to Mar-a-Lago, where membership is $200,000, and told people the tax bill meant, quote, you all just got a lot richer. Is that your populism?
Look, I think populism, when you look at President Trump, is about his entire program, okay? This tax cut was focused on industrial tax cut, on repatriation of cash. It was to make the manufacturing side of this country stronger. We had the 100% write-off of capital expenditure in period zero. This was all about rebuilding the manufacturing base, and that is the type of populism I'm talking about. Am I totally excited about every aspect of the tax bill? Not that excited. Remember, I was a big supporter of Paul Ryan's border adjustable tax, and that didn't go anywhere. So we went to Plan B. So, and do I think this can get better over time? Absolutely. But I think, given the context and given the situation, this is a very strong tax bill.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world.